fade behind you. Let us sit in stillness, you and I, as two souls quietly watching the river of life pass by. This is not a conversation about fear, but about freedom. You see, many people live their lives as if they will never end. They rush, they chase, they accumulate. And yet, there comes a point in a soul's journey when the chasing ends and the stillness begins. Today, I want to speak to you about something sacred. Something Edgar Cayce once pointed toward in his mysterious readings, 9 subtle signals that a soul gives off when it is nearing the end of its karmic cycle, its final earthly chapter. Not everyone will recognize these signs, but those who do, well, they are often souls who have walked many lifetimes, endured many storms, and now feel the quiet calling to return home. I will not rush this. I will not list these signals like items on a checklist. Instead, I will share them with stories, with silence, with sincerity, so that you may feel them, not just hear them. So, breathe with me. Let us begin. Signal 1. You begin to detach from the outcome. There was a time when I lived in the monastery at the edge of the Himalayas. One morning, after our meditation, a young disciple came to me and said, "Master, I feel like I no longer care about winning or losing. I just want to experience things, not control them. Am I becoming lazy?" I smiled. "No," I told him. "You are simply detaching. When the soul nears the completion of its cycle, it releases its grip on outcomes. Success and failure become two wings of the same bird. You begin to feel peace, not because things are going your way, but because you are no longer insisting they must. This is the beginning of surrender, not to the world, but to your soul. Have you felt this too? Signal 2. Time feels like an illusion. There's a strange moment in every enlightened journey when hours feel like minutes and days stretch like lifetimes. You look at the clock, and it means nothing to you, not because you are confused, but because something within you has begun to remember eternity. You realize you were never really on the clock. Time is only a measurement for those still measuring, but you begin to live in a sacred rhythm where the past dissolves and only the present remains. This is not forgetfulness. This is awakening. Signal 3. The material world begins to lose its grip. Once had a robe gifted to me by a wealthy traveler. It was fine silk, golden embroidery, worth more than the monastery's entire roof. I thanked him sincerely, but that night, I gave it to a poor shepherd on his journey home. Why? Because when the soul prepares for release, it no longer clings to jewels, titles, possessions. They begin to feel like sand in your hand. You don't hate them. You simply outgrow them. The joy of a sunrise, the softness of silence, these become the new treasures, and in this simplicity, you become rich beyond measure. Signal 4. You are drawn to nature, silence, and solitude. When I was a young monk, I often sought answers in scriptures. But now, in my old age, I find more answers in the sound of falling rain. You begin to notice the language of the wind, the teaching of the stars, the comfort of solitude. This is not loneliness, it is sacred aloneness. If you find yourself yearning for walks in the forest or moments staring at the moon, your soul is whispering, remember who you are. Signal 5. Your dreams become vivid, prophetic, or deeply symbolic. As the soul prepares to transition, it opens doorways between realms. In dreams, you may visit places that feel like homes you've never seen, speak to beings who radiate love, or receive messages that awaken your inner knowing. I have seen this in many pilgrims. 1. A woman from the West dreamt of a golden temple every night when she visited India. She found it exactly as in her dreams. How is this possible? Because the soul knows what the mind has yet to catch up to. Signal 6. You forgive more easily, even those who never apologize. There comes a season in the soul's journey where vengeance melts and resentment feels heavy. You no longer wish to win arguments, you wish for peace. You begin to understand that everyone is doing the best they can with the awareness they have. And so you forgive, not for them, but for you. You no longer want to carry old stories. You'd rather walk freely, even if the world never says sorry. This is grace. Signal 7. You feel an inner knowing that you've lived before. Have you ever walked into a place and felt, I've been here before, even when it's your first time, or met someone who felt familiar though you'd never met? These are echoes of your soul's memory returning. Many nearing their final life cycle begin to remember, not in detail, but in essence, the journey their soul has traveled. You don't remember names. You remember lessons. You don't recall faces. You recall the emotions. It's a soft unveiling, like mist slowly clearing from a mountain peak. Signal 8. You are drawn to helping others awaken. Final stages of a soul cycle often include service, not because of karma, but because of compassion. You don't preach, you shine. You don't instruct, you inspire. You become the lighthouse, not the sailor. There is a deep pull to share what you've learned, not to be seen, but to be useful. And when you help another remember who they are, you, too, remember who you are. Signal 9. A deep sense of inner peace, even in uncertainty. And finally, You begin to feel an unshakable peace that no external storm can touch. Not because life has become easy, but because you are no longer afraid. You trust the unfolding, you smile at endings. Knowing they are beginnings in disguise, you walk gently, speak softly, love fully, and fear less. You are no longer a guest in this life. You are at home in your being. My friend, if even a few of these signs feel familiar to you, do not be alarmed. You are not dying. You are awakening. You are remembering the sacred path you've walked for lifetimes, and you are approaching the final turn, but this is not the end. It is the opening of a door. And beyond that door is more beauty, more love, more truth than your mind could ever imagine. So stay with me. We are only beginning this conversation. Let us walk together gently into the next page of your soul's unfolding. Welcome back, dear one. I'm grateful you've chosen to stay. We ended our last moment together speaking of a deep, unshakable peace that begins to bloom within the soul when it senses it is coming full circle, that quiet knowing, that still river running beneath the surface. Today, we go deeper, not to seek more signals, but to understand what to do with them. For what use is a map if you don't know how to walk the path? What good are signs if you do not understand the journey they are pointing to? You see, the realization that you may be nearing the final chapter of your soul's earthly journey is not meant to cause you worry. It's meant to awaken a new kind of purpose. Not the kind that strives for achievement or applause, but the kind that seeks alignment. Let us walk into this purpose together. Let us explore the space between your heartbeats where wisdom lives. Part 1. Letting go of the identity you no longer need. He once asked an elder monk who had taken a vow of silence for over 30 years what he had learned about himself in all that quiet. He wrote only this on a piece of paper: I am not who I thought I was, and that is a blessing. What if I told you that much of the suffering we experience at the end of our cycles is not because of death, but because of clinging to an identity that is no longer necessary? The healer who no longer needs to heal, the warrior who no longer needs to fight, the seeker who no longer needs to search. As you move into the final chapter, you are invited to shed these skins, not because they were false, but because they are complete. You are not being asked to become someone new. You are being asked to become no one at all, so that your true self may emerge. Part 2. The art of sacred completion. You remember the feeling of finishing a long walk when your body is tired but your heart is full? That is sacred completion. It is not resignation, it is reverence. Many souls, as they near their final chapter, feel compelled to revisit the past, not to change it, but to bless it. Old letters, distant friends, wounds that were never spoken of, these things return not to haunt you, but to be healed. One pilgrim I met in southern India had returned to her hometown after 40 years of exile. She didn't go back for revenge. She went back to say goodbye. To walk the old paths, not with anger, but with peace. That is what it means to complete your cycle consciously. To bless the road behind you before stepping into the sky ahead. Part 3. Releasing the urgency to be understood. You may find at this stage that fewer people understand you. They may think you've become strange, too quiet, too contemplative. That is okay. The final chapter is often a lonely one, not because you are unloved, but because you are evolving beyond the noise. You begin to speak less, not because you have nothing to say, but because you no longer need to explain yourself. Let me tell you this: the tree does not shout to prove its value, it simply stands rooted and radiant. Be like that. Let your being speak louder than your voice. Let your silence teach more than your words. Part 4. The final service. To leave light behind in the monastery. We often say, when you leave a room, leave a bit of your light in it. This, too, applies to life. As your cycle nears its close, your purpose becomes less about doing and more about being. Be someone whose presence brings peace. Be the one whose eyes remind others of home. Be the final candle that lights another's path even as your own wick fades. There is no greater act of love than to leave behind wisdom without needing credit. A soul that has finished its journey is not one that has done it all, but one that has become love itself. Part 5. Trusting the invisible. No, I ask you to reflect on something that few dare to consider. What lies beyond this life? You may say heaven, or reincarnation, or nothing at all. But I believe we return to a place we already know, the space between dreams, the warmth between heartbeats, the timeless garden from which all souls emerge and to which all souls return. There is nothing to fear. The river does not fear the ocean, the flame does not fear the night. You have been here before, and you will be again. What matters most now is how you walk the rest of this path. Not with fear. Not with regret, but with gentle, open eyes, and a soul ready to release. Part 6. Embracing the beauty of the present moment. There's something sacred that happens when you stop waiting for life to happen and begin experiencing it exactly as it is. A bowl of rice becomes a miracle. The hand of a stranger becomes a blessing, the sound of your own breath becomes music. This, dear one, is the final teaching, to find God not in heaven but in this moment. To feel eternity not after death but in every step you take while alive. This is what it means to live your final chapter not with sorrow but with serenity. And so, we continue. You are not done yet, you are still blooming. This chapter may be the last of your current cycle, but it can be the most beautiful. Walk slowly now. Speak kindly. Let go often. And love with no conditions. Because the greatest sign of an awakened soul is peace. And peace is not found at the end of the road. It is found in how you walk it. We are not finished here, dear one. There is more to share about death, about light, about what it truly means to transcend, but that we will speak of next time you're still here. That means something. You have chosen stillness over noise, presence over distraction, and perhaps now you feel it to that quiet turning within, like a page flipping in a book you didn't know you were reading. Let us keep walking this sacred path together, slowly, purposefully. We are not chasing truth. We are remembering it. In this part of our journey, I want to speak to you about the most silent of all transformations, the ones that no one sees, the ones that happen deep within. Part 1. The shift from reaction to response. There comes a time near the turning of a soul's cycle when you stop reacting to everything, not because you no longer care, but because you finally understand that not everything deserves a piece of your peace. This is not passivity, it is power. Let me tell you of a story. In my early days as a novice monk, I once saw an elder being mocked by a visiting traveler. He was insulted, challenged, even laughed at, but the elder said nothing. Later, I asked him, "Why did you stay silent?" He smiled and replied, "When someone offers you a gift, and you do not accept it, who does it belong to?" This is what aging souls learn. Peace is not avoiding conflict. It is no longer needing to prove anything to anyone. Part 2. The disappearance of fear. As you walk closer to the end of a cycle, you may notice something beautiful and unexpected. Your fear begins to dissolve, not all at once, but gently, like mist rising from the surface of a lake as the sun comes up. Fear of failure, fear of being misunderstood, fear of what happens after death, they all begin to loosen their grip. Why? Because the closer you get to truth, the more you realize that nothing ever truly ends. The wave does not disappear when it crashes into the shore, it becomes part of the sea. So too, you. Part 3. Time becomes sacred. You remember not long ago when your days were rushed? Appointments, goals, noise, but now you feel the sacred weight of each hour. A warm tea in the morning is no longer routine, it is ceremony. Watching a child laugh is no longer background noise. It is a glimpse of eternity. This is what happens when you begin to die. Before you die, you realize that you've never truly lived. Until now. You begin to slow down, not out of weakness, but out of reverence. Because now, finally, you understand that time is not to be spent, it is to be blessed. Part 4. You begin to feel others' pain as your own. Another sign you are nearing the completion of a cycle is that you begin to cry, not for yourself but for others. The mother in grief, the beggar in silence, even the stranger passing you on the street. You begin to see yourself in them all. Why? Because the more awake your soul becomes, the thinner the veil of separation grows. This is not suffering, it is sacred empathy. It is the divine ache of remembering that we were never separate at all, that their pain was always your pain, that their healing is your healing too. Part 5. You find beauty in simplicity. A flower. An old song. The wind moving through the curtains. You begin to treasure these things more than wealth, fame, or success. Because now you understand simplicity is not poverty, it is purity. In our monastery, we often say, the one who can sit joyfully with nothing owns everything. You are beginning to embody that, and that is not a loss. It is a return. Part 6. The gentle presence of death. Speak of death not with fear, but with awe, because to one who has lived fully, death is not a punishment, it is a passage. You may begin to dream more vividly now of ancestors, of distant lands, of light. You may wake up with tears on your face and not know why. This is not your imagination, it is your soul preparing its suitcase, folding memories into light, stories into silence. Death is not coming for you. It is coming to carry you. Part 7. The legacy of presence. In the end, it will not matter what you owned. It will not matter what you built. It will only matter how you made others feel. Were you kind when it was difficult? Were you still when the world was loud? Were you light in someone else's storm? If the answer is yes, then your legacy is eternal. I met a woman once who lived her whole life in a small, quiet village. She had no riches, no fame, no followers, but at her funeral, over 300 people came. Not because of what she had, but because of who she was. She smiled at them when they felt invisible. She listened when no one else did. She made others feel seen. That is true wealth. So Dear one, you may be walking toward the final chapter, but you are not fading. You are becoming clear. Like the moon that does not shine less when the sun rises, you are simply shifting into another form of light. And though your body may one day fall away, the love you gave, the peace you chose, and the wisdom you lived will echo beyond time. This is not the end, only the opening of another sacred page. We will continue soon. There is more to explore. About forgiveness, about soul ties, about what waits in the stillness after the last breath. Until then, walk gently, speak blessings, and remember you are not dying, you are returning. It's a quiet knowing, isn't it? Not loud, not dramatic, but a soft bell ringing in the background of your days. The sense that something is shifting, that you are no longer the same person who rushed through life with urgency in your veins. You have slowed down, not because you've lost time, but because you have finally begun to understand it. This is the wisdom of the final chapter. And now we step even deeper, because there are things the soul begins to whisper only when it's ready. Part 1. You begin to forgive without being asked. Forgiveness. It is not a word, it is a release. At this stage of your soul's journey, you begin to forgive people not because they said sorry, but because you no longer wish to carry their weight in your heart. You begin to see that forgiveness is not something you do for others, it is something you do for your own peace. I once sat beside a man in his final days. His children had not visited. His brother had never spoken to him again, and yet, as he lay in bed, he said softly, "Tell them I hold no anger, my heart wants only to be free." This is the language of a soul that has returned to light. Forgive, dear one, even if they don't ask, even if they never understand, because the weight is no longer yours to bear. Part 2. You feel drawn to silence in it because you are tired, but because you are full of insight, full of peace. You begin to crave silence not as an escape but as a sacred space. You sit longer in the early morning, you listen more than you speak. You find that some of your deepest conversations happen within yourself. The world rushes on, but you are still. In that stillness, the divine speaks, because silence is not emptiness. Silence is where God goes to be heard. Part 3. You detach from results and rest in effort. In the final chapter of your life cycle, you stop obsessing over outcomes. Did the plan work? Did the project succeed? Did the world notice? It no longer matters, because you begin to understand it is not about what the action brings you. It is about what the action makes of you. You cook the meal, not for praise, but because cooking is love. You pray, not to receive, but to become aligned. You serve, not to be thanked, but because service itself is sacred. In the monastery, we say, chop wood, carry water, not for reward, but for presence. This is your power now. To do what is right, even when no one sees, even when there's nothing to gain. That is soul maturity. Part 4. You begin to feel ready to let go, it to disappear, not to abandon, but to release. Release attachments, release expectations, release the illusion that you must cling to every part of your past to honor it. A wise monk once told me, when the fruit is ripe, it lets go of the tree, not out of rebellion, but because its time has come to nourish the earth. So too, you are not dying, you are ripening, and ripe fruit does not panic when it falls. It knows the fall is sacred. It knows the earth is waiting. Part 5. You remember love more than pain. At the edge of the soul's journey, the pain you once held so tightly begins to fade. What stays is love. You don't remember every argument. You remember the way their eyes lit up when they smiled. You don't recall every disappointment. You recall the warmth of a hand that held yours when you needed it most. It is not denial. It is a purification of memory. The heart remembers what truly mattered. And in the end, only love does. Part 6. You feel a sense of home you can't explain. You may find yourself looking at the sky more often, feeling strangely nostalgic for places you've never been. You might hear a piece of music and weep, not because it reminds you of the past, but because it reminds you of something beyond. This is your soul remembering that earth is not your final home, it is your sacred classroom. You are remembering where you came from and where you are returning to. This homesickness is not sadness, it is sacred calling. It means you are aligned with your truth. Part 7. You want to bless everything before you gone. It just people, but moments, the sunrise, the laughter of a stranger, the softness of your own aging hands. You begin to look at life with eyes that say, thank you, I see you, I bless you. You want to walk through your final days leaving a trail of quiet light behind you, and you will. Because by noticing these signals, by embracing these changes, you have not only stepped into your final chapter, you have begun to write the most beautiful one of all. So here we are again, dear one, you and I, walking slowly through this sacred threshold. I do not know how much time you have left on this earth, but I do know this: if you walk it with love, if you walk it with awareness, if you walk it with forgiveness and truth, then every step becomes a prayer. every breath becomes a blessing and every goodbye becomes a soft, eternal hello. There is one final page left to share. In that next space, we will speak of the soul's departure, the last breath, and what waits in the stillness beyond time. But for now, rest. Reflect. And remember, you are not alone, you are being guided, and you are returning to light. So we've walked this far together, 5 quiet pages of reflection, of stillness, of truth, and now we find ourselves approaching the veil, the soft and sacred moment that so many fear, and yet so few ever prepare for in peace. But you are not here by accident. You are awakening, you are remembering. So come closer now. Let me speak to your soul. Part 1, the final signal. A profound sense of completion when the soul is nearing the end of a cycle, truly nearing. You may feel something unlike anything before. Not sadness, not fear, but completion, a quiet inner voice whispers, it is done. You no longer fight the flow of life. You no longer seek to control every outcome, you simply allow. You surrender to the sacred unfolding. This sense of closure isn't despair. It is divine, like the final note of a beautiful song, or the last line of a poem that leaves your heart still and full. That moment is not the end. It is a return to wholeness. Part 2, the dying of the ego, not the self. When people speak of death, they often imagine the vanishing of the self. But what truly fades in the final chapter is not you. It is the mask you wore, the fears you fed, the roles you played. The ego dissolves like mist in morning light, and beneath it, the eternal part of you rises. Silent, radiant, whole. In our monastery, we call this the great unveiling because who you really are was never born and can never die. You are not your name, not your wounds, not your accomplishments. You are the quiet awareness beneath it all, and death is simply the moment that awareness is no longer limited by the body. Part 3, the light that comes to meet you. There are many who have returned from the edge of death, and they speak of something beautiful, a light, a warmth, a presence beyond words. I believe them. Because that light is not foreign. It is familiar. It is the divine source from which you came, and to which you now return. In the monastery, we often chant, from light I came, for light I lived, and to light I return. It is not a destination, it is a reunion, and when that moment comes, you will not be alone. Part 4, the loved ones who wait beyond the valleys. They're there. The ones you lost, the ones you grieved, the ones who left before their time. They are not gone. They have simply stepped into a different room, a room you are now walking toward. I once sat with a woman as she passed. Her eyes, though closed, began to move gently, and she whispered, Mama, you came for me. Then she smiled and left with peace on her face. You see, death is not the shutting of a door, it is the opening of one. And those who truly loved you in this life wait for you there with open arms. Part 5, the soul's final gift, a ripple that never ends. You may worry, what will remain of me when I am gone? The answer is simple, your presence. Your choices, your love, they will echo not in monuments, but in people. In the way your child speaks gently to a stranger, in the friend who learned from your patience, in the stranger who was comforted by your smile. The body may pass, but the soul sends ripples that never stop moving, like a stone dropped into the great river of time. And even after you have crossed the veil, your light continues to guide. Part 6, the moment of transition, the sacred silence. The final breath, the world grows quiet. Not out of fear, but out of reverence. Time seems to pause. And in that breathless space, something ancient awakens. You feel light, weightless, vast. Like drifting out of a small, dark room into an endless sky of stars. No pain, no effort, just release. And there you hear it. The quiet voice that has whispered to you your entire life, you are safe now, you are home. So, my friend, if you have felt these signals, if you have heard this quiet voice, if you've been drawn to silence, forgiveness, simplicity, and surrender, then know, you are not broken. You are not lost, you are transitioning, you are being reborn into light. This is not the end of your story. It is the start of your eternity. Final blessing before the end. Before we part this sacred page, I want to leave you with a blessing. May your heart remain open, even as the world closes. May your breath be steady, even as time fades. May you walk through the veil not with fear, but with grace. And may you know, in your final moment, that you are always enough, that you are always loved, and that you are never alone. There is one more conversation to be had. In our final page together, we will explore what lies beyond, the journey after death, the soul's return, and how love continues even through lifetimes. Until then, rest in peace, live in light, and walk gently. Dear soul. And now, my dear friend, we have reached the final page. Not the end of your story, but the beginning of a new one. You've walked with me through signs, through stillness, through surrender. You've listened with your heart, and now we step through the veil together. Part 1, what happens after the final breath? Let me tell you something most forget. The soul never panics. At the final breath, the body grows quiet but the soul becomes aware. You feel as though you've awakened from a long, dense dream. There is light, not harsh, but warm. There is peace, not hollow, but full, and there is a presence, loving, vast, infinite. Some call it God, some call it Source, I call it home. Part 2, the review of life. You do not face punishment. You face truth. You are shown your life not to shame you, but to free you. You see how your words shaped others, how your choices left echoes in the world. You feel what others felt through you, and you finally understand the way you loved was always the most important thing. I met an old master once who said, in death, we do not face judgment. We face understanding, and from that understanding, we choose to evolve. You're not sent to heaven or hell. You see clearly, and in that seeing, you begin your healing. Part 3, the soul's rest and restoration. After the review, you are welcomed into rest. Not sleep, but a sacred stillness where your soul is nourished. Some describe it as a garden, some as floating among stars, some walk along rivers of light. The form doesn't matter. What matters is this: you are loved, you are healed, you are whole. You may meet guides, ancestors, spiritual companions, and they do not scold, they embrace, because all of them, every single one, has walked the same road you have. They remember what it is to be human. Part 4, rejoining the soul family. You are not alone beyond the veil. There are those you've walked with across lifetimes, souls you've met again and again in different forms, as parents, children, lovers, strangers. You will recognize them, and they will smile, because every reunion on that side is one of remembrance. The connections you formed in love will always bring you back together. That's why some souls stay with you, lifetime after lifetime. Your dog from childhood, the grandmother who raised you, the teacher who changed your path. You find each other again because love is not limited to one lifetime. Part 5, choosing the next step. And now comes the choice. After you rest, after you heal, after you remember who you truly are, you are given the freedom to choose. Will you return again, to serve, to learn, to help another soul awaken? Or will you remain in the higher realms for a while, assisting from the unseen? There is no pressure, no deadline, only clarity. The soul chooses what is most aligned with its growth and the collective. In truth, dear one, you are eternal, and you will always be guided. Part 6, what remains on earth and what of the life you left behind? Your body may be gone, your voice may fall silent, but your essence remains in the hearts of those you touched, a memory, a whisper, a nudge in the dark. You become the feather on someone's path, the song that plays just when they need it, the dream that reminds them they are never alone. You become presence, and sometimes you become someone's guardian. I've seen it, I've felt it. You will continue to care for the ones you love, even from beyond. Part 7, the final realization. You were never separate. And now, the deepest truth: there is no death. There is only transition. You are not your body. You are not your mind. You are the quiet awareness that holds all things. You were never alone, never separate, never without purpose. Every sorrow was a lesson. Every joy was a remembrance. Every goodbye was the doorway to the next hello. When you return to the source, you don't just find peace. So this is it, beloved soul, the final page. You came with questions, you leave with remembrance. You came with worry, you leave with stillness. And most importantly, you came as a seeker, but you leave as the light you've always been. You are eternal, you are sacred, and you are loved beyond all understanding. Final words, a parting blessing. May your journey be soft. May your heart be steady. May your breath be light as you cross into eternity. And when the time comes, may you recognize the light, and may the light recognize you. Until we meet again, walk gently, live fully, die peacefully, and rise forever as love.